Hi there, everyone. I'm Kerry Grace, the CEO of Regional Development Australia Mid-North Coast. And today's More About session, we're joined by Diane Gray. She's the Regional Manager, Northern Inland and Mid-North Coast for AusIndustry, and also by Giles White, who is the Business Facilitator in the Entrepreneurs Program. Welcome to both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kerry.
Now, before we get started, if you're listening live today, I'd just like to let you know you are welcome to ask questions live. This is recorded and will be distributed. So just either ask the question in the chat or you can come on live. Just keep that in mind. If you'd like to ask a question and you're listening to this as a recording, we will provide you with contact details for both Di and Giles towards the end of the webinar. So to get started, Di, could you give us an overview of what it is that the program you're working on does?
Excellent. So as a regional manager for AusIndustry, that falls within the Department of Industry, Energy, Science and Resources. I think I said that wrong, but yeah, DISA. And within that falls the Entrepreneurs Program as well. So it's the same family as what even is Strengthening Business, where Giles is working. What we do is we work with businesses to help provide information, whether it's making connections and information about grants and incentives, as well as getting industry insights and sharing that between government and business. So it's a two-way flow for that. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Oh, you're on mute there.
It's the meme of the century, isn't it? Giles,
Yeah.
could you explain a little bit more about your program, please?
Yes, thanks, Kerry. So the program that I represent is called Strengthening Business, and it's one of the initiatives within the broader Entrepreneurs Program. Strengthening Business was first established off the back of the 2019 bushfires and was very much a rapid response shift to create a part of the Entrepreneurs Program to help small businesses, very much businesses up to 1.5 mil turnover in bushfire affected areas. Now, that has actually recently evolved and to be eligible to or be open to COVID affected businesses as well. So it's a much wider, more widely available program. But essentially, yeah, it's a program aimed at helping small business recover from disasters, natural or otherwise, and then become stronger and more resilient going forward.
Thanks so much. Sorry, I must apologise. There's quite a heavy shower going on in the background. I've just had to move so I can hear properly. So Di, could you give an example of a business wanting to work with you? What might the process be? What happens?
That's a great question, Kerry. So because I cover the two regions, the Northern Inland and the Mid-North Coast, it's quite a large geographical area. So I cannot always, it's pretty much impossible to or logistically be everywhere all the time. So very much available to businesses via phone or video conferencing. And what it looks like is that if a business calls or I go and visit, it's sort of saying, where are you at? What's your business doing? And get an overview of what their aims and objectives are, and then cross-reference that with potential funding, predominantly in the federal funding arena, but we'll connect with state and local funding where that's available as well. And that means that I might be putting them in touch with who their local connection is with that funding or that grant opportunity, setting them out some information, answering questions where we can, supporting them with even if there's not a grant available, which does happen quite often, where there might be another business opportunity, an opportunity with another business if they were connected. So working to look at where those opportunities are for business, whether it's grant funding or not, and say, how can we help you grow? How can we support you in not just growth in revenue, but growth in employment and scale and scope across geographical areas, predominantly in regional areas.
So it's
yeah,
very flexible program.
It is very flexible, and it's very much tailored to what the business needs and what's actually available with grants and funding.
Okay. Which is really very helpful for businesses. I know it can be difficult sometimes for businesses to understand what is state and what's Commonwealth and what's in the non-government or philanthropic sector, and navigating that.
Yeah. So a great example probably and a very relevant example for now is if I was over in a flood affected region and visiting businesses and they were saying, yeah, okay, what support's available? It would be connecting them with Services New South Wales, RDA, if that's relevant. Most of all, I'd be looking at saying, are they eligible for strengthening business? Mm-hmm. Because that's an immediate one, and knowing that strengthening business is also there. The Prime Minister did announce funding for these programs for support for the flood affected. So it would be saying, right, this is really important that we get these businesses connected with strengthening business facilitators or growth facilitators that can come in and support them to rebuild and build their resilience.
Oh, fantastic, Di. And Giles, how about you? Could you explain how you might work with a business? What might happen?
Yes. So when someone comes into the Strengthening Business program, the first thing that I, as one of many facilitators, will do is meet with the client on either on an online if we can't do face-to-face, but as a preference, it will always be a face-to-face meeting if we can manage that. Then really understand what their issues are, and particularly the pressing issues. So sometimes you might have an amazing business that has had some devastating effect, from bushfires or floods or whatever it might be. And obviously that means that there are really critical issues that need to be resolved. So the first thing we do is actually triage those issues. Sometimes that may require us to refer that person to other organizations, and certainly we stay very close with organizations like RDA, like AusIndustry, like the regional councils, the local councils. So we're very connected on the ground with the other organizations that can assist those businesses very quickly. In parallel with that, what we also do is work very closely with the business to develop a roadmap for their business for the next 12 months. This is one of the key things with strengthening business, is we get to work with the business for up to 12 months, if that's what the business wants. And in most cases they do, because they quickly see the difference that it's making for them. So we figure out where they are at that point in time, and what the immediate recovery needs are, and where they want to be in 12 months time. And we break that down into quarterly, 6 monthly and 12 monthly goals, and help them progress through those stages. So yeah, look, as an overview, that's how we would work with business.
Thanks, Giles. I managed to get the mute button off that time. So what about the criteria for a business to actually use your program? We'll stay with you, Giles, for a minute.
Yeah, so it's a good question, because the criteria for different programs does change. Strengthening Business is a federal program, as opposed to some of the other programs which are state run. So Strengthening Business is a federal program and has different criteria to some of the state programs. So the main criteria is that the business needs to have an ABN, and it's not the ABN has to be a company ABN, so not associated with a trust trusts are not eligible for strengthening business. The business will be turning over less than 1.5 million per annum, and will have been in operation since or prior to August 2019, and that's anchored to the start of the Black Summer bushfires, which is that's the origins of the program. Now, that particular element of the criteria may change because some of the other criteria has recently been updated, and when I say recently, I mean in the last few weeks, to open the business up to COVID-affected businesses. Originally, strengthening business, and I'm mentioning this really for the benefit of anyone who's looked at strengthening business previously and has not found that they're eligible because perhaps their business wasn't bushfire affected. That's no longer an essential criteria. It includes also COVID affected businesses, which of course is most. So as long as you meet the other criteria, then there's a pretty good chance that you will be eligible for the program, which is fantastic because it makes it available to a much wider range of businesses.
Thanks, Giles. And how about yourself, Di, for your program? What's the eligibility?
Because I'm not associated with any one program, I'm there as a facilitator or an advisor to business. So any business can get in contact with me, and I can then support them with where they may need to go and look at what opportunities are available to them. For example, whether it is connecting with Business Connect advisors or ASBAS, or whether it is a growth under the Entrepreneurs Program, which is federally funded, and whether, for example, asking a business, what's your turnover? And if it's 1.5 mil or more, and going, okay, what industry are you in? Are you in a growth sector that makes you then eligible to go into the program? It's not for me to then say, oh, right, go and enter this program. It's saying, let me introduce you to one of the facilitators, and that's with accelerating commercialization or innovations and connections. These are programs that fit under the Entrepreneurs Program. So it's saying, right, well, let me introduce you to somebody within that, and because we know what a warm introduction is like compared to a cold call or a cold intro. So it's to say, right, let's put you in touch with that person. Let's find out a little bit more detail. They're the experts in their field, and make sure that you're well informed before you apply for a grant, or making sure that you are meeting the eligibility criteria and that you can meet the outcomes required of those grants. And that saves businesses a lot of time, rather than going in there and saying, yep, I'm just going to apply for this grant, and then they find out that, oh, I didn't read the guidelines quite right, or my understanding of the guidelines was not where it should have been.
It's terrible to see that happen too. It can be such a waste of resource.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Dave, if I was to summarize, would in theory your program, and in fact yourself, be the person that a business owner could come to if they knew they needed some help but didn't exactly know where to go to, whereas Giles, yours is that actual more hands-on support for businesses that fit that particular criteria?
Yes, I would agree with that statement. It's a very strong starting point, catching up with one of your AusIndustry regional managers, and like I said, I'm covering Mid-North Coast and Northern Inland.
I know, Diane, my region in the Mid-North Coast alone, there's just 22,000 businesses in that region. How do you, and obviously not all of them are reaching out to you, but however do you cover the amount of businesses that are needing this advice and support?
It's a great question, because it's impossible to cover every business. So that's why it's important to let businesses know we're here, so that they can proactively approach us as well. Because we're not mind readers. We don't know what's happening within a business and don't know the support that they need. So we very much do rely on them to come to us as well. And when I go out on the road trips, going out and making sure that I can visit as many businesses as I can. And sometimes I'm just walking in their door and saying, hello, how are you? Here I am if I can ever help.
Oh, that's great. And it's been a really tough time for business everywhere. What are some of the really common challenges you're seeing business owners have?
Is that to me or to Giles?
Yeah,
you want me to start?
you.
Right.
Yeah,
What the common problems are skill shortages and not enough people.
Yeah.
I think that's nationwide. Actually, I think it's global. That problem's happening globally. And supply chain issues. There's just so many problems with getting supplies in and out, freight costs, everything that's associated with that. And now we have the fuel problem. And I think businesses are going to be slapped with fuel levies from transport companies. And there's absolutely no way that we can avoid it, because it's the way it works. These costs get passed on. I mean, they're passed on to every household just by filling your car up.
I think as well on that with the fuel costs. So it's been a problem for businesses for a long time that, as Di mentioned, that just getting staff can be difficult. But even if you can get staff, often those staff need to come from other areas. And the problem which has developed over the last 18 months is the cost of housing and the availability of housing, either to buy or rent, has gone through the roof, and it's become unaffordable for so many people. And now, so previously you could say, well, okay, you live further away and you travel, but now with the cost of fuel, that's just exacerbated that problem as well. So it's a problem on top of a problem on top of a problem. So it's a real challenge, and that is virtually a countrywide problem. It's not a regional problem. So yeah, look, I think we've got our work cut out. Hey, Di?
Most definitely. And I think every business owner out there has their work cut out, because the days of, like 50 years ago or whatever, where you could plan for 10 years and have a strategy and you could pretty much go that 10 years and follow that, those days are gone. While you do need to have a longer term vision, the agility within the business has to be able to be adaptable to all these challenges. And the businesses that are on the forefront and are proactive are navigating it with some level of success. And I think sometimes it's the small business and the micro businesses that are really finding it tough.
And there's nearly 14,000 of those in my region. I really feel for them as well, particularly because a lot of them are mums working in businesses at home with kids too. And working out how to actually get that support can be really difficult for that cohort.
Yeah. I don't know, Giles is probably really good to add in here with the strengthening business, because, and having previously been a strengthening business facilitator as well, there's a lot of commonalities around micro and small businesses.
Giles, could you talk about how you might help a business like that? Somebody, as Ernesto Sorelli might say, they're at home dying of loneliness in their garage trying to survive. How can you help them?
Yes, well, actually, the same process that we would apply to not necessarily very large business, because strengthening business is aimed at smaller businesses, but even for a sole operator business working from home, because we have such a tight process that we know that works. It's been tried and tested on many businesses. I think we're around about 500 businesses now that have gone through the strengthening business program. So we've really got it down pat as to how we can help businesses, so we know what to look for. And in fact, I was actually with a small home-based business just 2 days ago, and on the mid coast, and she was actually she was saying, "Oh, I'm not even sure if I should be on this program, because are there people more deserving than me? Are there businesses with staff? And I said, look, just because you don't have staff, it doesn't mean that you don't have the same issues. You are those staff as well. So often they will need more help, and the mental pressure on them is higher. So they've got more to deal with. Often, as you mentioned, they'll have children at home. They're navigating around other aspects of their life that are unrelated to their business, and sometimes those things even compete against the business for time. So it can be very difficult. But yeah, look, we have a tried and tested methodology for working with those businesses and helping them, and because we have lots of connections with people that can help them, whether it's with staffing or accounting or legal issues. We're connected, as Guy is as well, with organisations like Service New South Wales, and so we're able to get the information that they need to them very quickly. So there's a network of 13 strengthening business facilitators within New South Wales, and that's actually currently expanding to 20, particularly off the back of the Northern Rivers flood disaster. So just in that, there's a very strong network, but there's actually an even bigger network behind that with the wider entrepreneurs program. So we have vast resources that we can pull on, which small work from home businesses wouldn't even dream that they had access to. So we can really transform a business very, very quickly because of those resources, and we know exactly what to funnel into them, but without completely overwhelming them. We give them take them through the process in sort of bite-sized chunks to make it easy to work through. The last thing we want to do is make life harder for them.
It sounds wonderful.
Just to add on to what Giles has said, one of the things that I really loved about strengthening business when I was a facilitator is their access to the Deloitte digital team. So for their digital marketing, their any sort of digital interactions, and that's been of enormous benefit to a lot of businesses. And these micro businesses are, they've got to be a jack of all trade within their business. And yet one of the things from all the years that I've done as consulting prior to this role, and et cetera, is even though you're a jack of all trade, be the expert in your core business. If they can do that one thing and be very, very strong on what their core business is, and make sure that everything else goes around that core, then they're going to be okay.
That does make a lot of sense. Just on those bigger issues that you mentioned earlier, Di, I mean, obviously the programs aren't designed to solve housing or to solve workforce shortages or to solve the supply chain woes or the petrol costs. But how do you think the programs can support businesses to navigate those things and to survive in very difficult circumstances?
Another great question, Kerry. Sometimes what we need as business owners is somebody to talk to. Somebody to say, how do you see this problem? One of the things I said earlier was that in my role, part of it is to provide insights, to gain and provide insights. So when we know, for example, that fuel levies are going to be coming in, then it's like you're having a chat with the business and going, are you considering this in your business? This is one of the things that's come to our attention. Are you aware of it? And it can make the biggest difference between how they then approach their next month, 3 months, 12 months of changing their financial forecasting or anything like that. And knowing that there is that resource to call upon, a lot of businesses are very grateful that there is that, even though we're not able to get in there and do it for business, and we're not there to tell them how to run their business at all. But knowing that there is that support, it takes a village to raise a child. I think that saying, while it's true, the village is required for everything we do in life. Yeah. And that includes running a business.
I love that you said that. I think it's so important, and particularly looking after customers and making sure people are spending locally as well is another important part.
Yep. And look, and if they're sharing with us that they are having problems getting supplies into Australia, and can we get manufacturing in Australia for certain goods or not? And a great one is the steel that Blue Scope, I think it is, that got that funding to produce more steel. That's what we need, because we can't get them imported anymore. So it's like saying to businesses, let us know that, and we can take that and advocate for them to the government.
Yeah.
To say this is what business is crying out for.
And the RDA program has a very similar function in that regard as well. While we may not have specific things that we're working with, similarly to you, Di, we're a hub where people can come and get connected into other things. I really do think that it's quite fabulous that the government can invest in people and programs that can be signposts to other things.
And industries as a whole as well.
Yeah. So Giles, I wondered from your perspective, do you think small businesses are working together often enough, and what types of things might prevent them from doing that?
It's a really good question, because it's actually something which is top of mind for me with most of the businesses that I work with, is who else can they work with, which other businesses, both within the program and outside of the program, because there is strength in numbers. So a lot of businesses are quite collaborative and do work with other organizations and with other businesses. But look, I would always absolutely encourage businesses to go out and network and find connections and find commonality and synergies with as many local businesses as possible, because there is strength in numbers, both from a trading point of view, from a basic referral level, but also at a marketing level. If you've got some marketing activity that's maybe some cross promotion, something like that, so you might have one business that is promoting another. You've also got the mental health side of things, where actually that support, just that friendly support, knowing that you're not in it alone, is super important. So I'm a big advocate of connecting businesses, and I actually will look for opportunities for clients on the program. So I had a business this week, which is an allied health business, and we're actually working to change their business model. And I haven't got time to go into that in detail now, but one of the things that we identified was that we needed to change the sort of the vibe of the practice where they are. And that same day, I was talking to a local artist in the same region, who was looking for other ways to sell her paintings. And so, there was a really nice kind of referral connection that I was able to make, where potentially the allied health business could actually use the artwork to enhance their practice, and the artist is able to potentially sell paintings from that premise. Now, there's more to it, and there's a bit more sort of complexity behind it, but just as an example of the way that I will help people connect. And they're businesses that, even though they're relatively a stone's throw apart, they didn't know each other, they weren't aware of each other, and so it's a way of broadening both of their networks, and that in turn helps them on so many levels. So yeah, look, it's super important.
Absolutely. And having that fresh set of eyes to just look at things and consider ideas from a different perspective is so important too. Why is it that you think, Giles, that businesses don't make that really concerted effort to spend some time working on their business as well as in their business?
There's a saying which I know that everyone will know, which is you can't see the wood for the trees.
Yeah.
And that's almost always the case, that you're so deep into the trees that you never really take a moment to step back out and look at it and look at the big picture and where you're going. You're just head down, charging in the direction that you're used to operating. And so what I do when I work with a business is I just help them take a breath, sit up, look around, see what else is there. And it's often something that they just don't naturally do. So having someone to help them do that is what these kind of programs are all about.
And that part is so important too, isn't it, Giles? Because it's one thing to step out of the business and take a break, or to take a bit of time to reflect, but to have somebody else to guide you through that is a really important investment.
Oh, even top sports performers have coaches for a very good reason, for the same reason.
Yeah.
So yes, it's beneficial for virtually everyone, whether it's a business coach, whether it's a facilitator for a government program, whether it's a sporting coach, whether it's a life coach, whether it's just someone, just a friend that you can talk to for some impartial advice. Then having what's the phrase? I think it's is it a problem shared is a problem halved.
Yeah.
And that's another way to look at it.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it. And a friend of mine, Rosemary Shapiro-Lou, says anything that you're not wanting to do, there's somebody else out there dying to do it. And I think of myself being a young business owner. It was a small business. I was worried about cash flow, and I didn't want to delegate anything out to anybody else for fear of losing revenue. But the day I finally decided to get a bookkeeper engaged, and then later an admin assistant, I found that the business could actually grow and it was earning more money. And to your point, Di, I was doing what I was good at, which is not books.
You hit the nail on the head there, where people go into business to create an income. Generally, to start with, they want a business that will provide a living for themselves and then a living for others that come in and work for them. So when they start up, cash flow is king.
Yeah,
it's the number one priority. And so to risk losing that by stepping away and entrusting others can be a big deal. Yet bigger businesses have shown that it can work when it's done well. Yet cash flow is still critical. And we're finding that out with some of the businesses that have been through drought, they've been through bushfire, they've been through COVID. This is their second round of floods, for some of them. And their cash flow, their reserves they've dwindled. They're really struggling now. And so for them to get back on their feet as quick as they can and start generating that income again, and have our, Aussies are really good at supporting each other, particularly when we're down.
Yeah.
And this is what it's going to take, is for businesses to thrive in regional communities, it's going to have to take regional communities to support them as well.
And Deb, what you're mentioning is, I mean, it is tough now for business. The business owners have been through a lot. In any kind of business climate, it's always really difficult to go from being that micro business to that through the growth phase. And I don't remember what the stat is anymore, but let's just say most businesses fail in the first 4 years. But if you manage to make it through that valley, what are the signs that you see a really strong business has put into place to be able to grow once their first few years are completed?
Yeah, the people that, and again, this is my personal opinion and from my past experience, businesses that have focused on their core business, have not diluted their resources, and focused in on making sure they're cash viable, not credit viable, cash viable, even though there is some level of good debt. But when they can go through the 5 years of consolidating all of that and getting their growth and not losing sight of what they're in the marketplace for, yet they're also able to adjust and be agile. The business nowadays needs to be like a speedboat zipping around Sydney Harbour rather than a tanker. It's got to be easily mobile. So those micro businesses, staying mobile, agile, knowing you can move relatively quickly is going to be critical to be able to survive your next 10 years, where your ship gets a bit bigger. And it takes a little bit more time to move or change. I think as well, one of the things that's starting to appear is a thing called change fatigue. A lot of people, just because of one disaster after another and whatnot. And we're now going through a phase where, we talked about fuel costs, but we also know from the news over the past couple of days, inflation is now, what's it going to look like? Where's it going to impact? What goods are going to increase, etc. So that cash management, that financial control is imperative for small business, micro businesses, any size. It doesn't matter what size business. It's going to be imperative.
All the more reason to outsource books if that's not your thing.
Well, yeah, it is. And then there's also the fact that you've got to rely on your talent that comes into your business. And now retention of people, once you get them, retention of them is going to be critical as well. And I'm pretty sure Giles is right in the thick of that.
Yes, very much so. And I would say probably 90% of the conversations that I've had with businesses on the program this week have included some discussion around their budget, so their budget, but also their forecast. So I agree with you, Kerry, 100% on the probably the first thing for most small businesses to outsource is their bookkeeping. Finding a good bookkeeper is super important, and what that good bookkeeper will enable you to do is, what they will be able to help with, is to create a budget and also create a forecast. And the beauty with a forecast is you can, as things change, exactly as Di said, that there's a lot of change happening at the moment, with all the various things going on in the world that can impact in various different ways. So if you have a forecast which you can tweak and you say, well, if suddenly this cost change and this changes, then a good bookkeeper can set up an Excel spreadsheet in a way that can reverse engineer all of your numbers, so you can see what the impact is on the day-to-day in terms of the units you've got to sell or whatever it might be. And then yes, super important to be flexible and be able to change, but also to have that clarity around what your core business is. And certainly that's the first place that I would always start with a client, is making sure that they're very clear on their value proposition, so the value that they are offering to their customers, and making sure that is a viable business model. And if it's not, then working with them to tweak it, to revise it, even pivot it sometimes, to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't divert on your great business idea because a grant opportunity comes up and takes you off in a different direction.
Yes.
No, that's right. It's very tempting for a lot of people to just chase the dollar, but you have to be true to yourself and true to your business and true to your own values, because otherwise you're going to come unstuck.
In addition to that, I think any business, just when you were talking about if grant funding comes along, any business model that relies on grant funding to survive, there is a problem with it. Yeah, it's the icing on the cake. It's not the cake.
Yeah.
And I agree with what Giles said. You're getting a bookkeeper. Yet if you are somebody that's really good at your books and finance is one of your strengths, identify the area that's not necessarily your strength and then outsource that. So if that is marketing, but outsourcing does not, this is critical. This is absolutely critical. Outsourcing does not mean abdicating responsibility. I've worked with businesses where I've said, so what does your, and talking about micro and small business predominantly here, what's your forecast revenue for this financial year? Oh, I don't know. I would have to ask my accountant. It's kind of a red flag that a business owner is not sure of their bread and butter.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to know, in this day and age where business is tough, are you seeing more businesses open, or are you seeing the amount of businesses diminishing? Di, maybe you could comment on that.
I don't really know how to answer that, because some industries, they're expanding and there's growth. And then like we're seeing construction, fabrication, anything around those industries, they're growing and they're expanding. I think to some degree, COVID has hit the micro business sector. And there's people that have gone back or found secondary employment to their business or things like that to supplement. And there's also some businesses that want to grow but are hamstrung because they can't find people.
I'm actually really looking forward to seeing the stats come out from the Bureau of Statistics. We've noticed a steady incline in business registrations over the last about 7 years. I'm really curious, particularly with this great resignation that's being spoken about. Are these people going to casual work, or are they starting contracting, consulting businesses? It could go any way, really. Do you have
Well, the good news is that there's plenty of work out there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Giles, do you have a perspective on that?
Yeah, so there's definitely plenty of work out there, and the key thing to bear in mind is, and this has always been the case, this isn't new, but the types of jobs that are available is changing. It's always been changing. It's always been evolving, and there are jobs that existed 100 years ago that people have never heard of anymore. So, and there are jobs which exist now which even 20 years ago people would have never heard of. And I've had a few of those job titles myself. So it's a very changing market, and you've just got to always be looking forward and always looking at what's around the corner and being prepared for that. I had a conversation yesterday with an IT recruiter, and he was I was talking to him at an event that I was at, and he was saying that they could not get enough top level programming clients, that the banks are all hoovering up all these top level programming clients. So even competitive and cash rich mid-level businesses can't compete against banks when it comes to hiring the very best talent. So there's an enormous amount of competition in the market for good people, but it's good people in what I would consider a non-traditional industry. So yes, there are lots of jobs out there, but they're not necessarily the same jobs that you might have seen 20 years ago. So being aware of that is important.
Absolutely. Now, Giles, could you please just tell people how they apply to be your client and how they can get in touch with you or the program as a whole?
Yes. So if you don't already have my business card, and why would you have my business card? But no, if you don't already have my business card, then if you just simply Google strengthening business, entrepreneurs program strengthening business, then that will take you to the page where you can actually apply online. So very easy, but certainly if you talk to any of your local, whether it's councils or RDA contacts or AusIndustry and regional managers, or I mean, we're a very well networked bunch, so it's fairly easy to find your way to your local facilitator. You don't actually need to find your local facilitator. That will automatically happen when you apply online. So yeah, the easiest way is just simply Google Entrepreneurs Program Strengthening Business, and it's pretty simple from there.
Excellent, thank you. And Diane, how about yourself? How do they find your? And thanks for putting that link into the chat as well.
I'll put the Strengthening Business link in there, Giles.
Oh, thanks,
yeah.
Di.
Yeah.
I can't talk and type, but us males, we can't multitask. So.
For me, it's giving me a call or sending me an email. So, and I'll send those details through to you. And if people leave a message or send me a text, that's fine too. So, and if you wanted to know more about any of the grant program, even including strengthening business, just give us a call. Yeah,
that's so helpful, thank you. And also for you to know, on the RDA website, which is rdamnc.org.au, we have a list there of all of the programs that you can have access to, and Di's contacts are certainly there as well, so you can find them there too. Now, just if you're on the live call, I'd like to give you the opportunity to ask any questions. You can put them on the chat, or you can, if you're prepared to be recorded, come in with your voice. Otherwise, we're going to sign off for the day. Just while you think about any questions you might have, thanks to Di and you too, Giles, for coming in. It's really good to know a little bit more about the programs, but I think more importantly for people to understand how approachable both of you are and willing to help them. I wonder sometimes if businesses might feel a little bit nervous, like they're not doing the right thing and they don't want to get exposed, and not doing business right, so they don't want to be shown up, or I think I can't imagine either of you being judgy about that with the business.
I think as well, it's also important that what business share with us is confidential. Yeah, it's strictly confidential. So
that is really important. I just wanted to go back through a list as well of the things that between the both of you you've said are important for a successful business. So I really like that point about the business being agile and how important that is in this day and age. How you need to be an expert or focus on the things that you're expert in or are your core business. I think that's a really valid point as well. Not diluting your resources, as you said, Di, and making sure that you're cash viable, and also making sure that you take responsibility even if you've delegated things. Fundamental core ideas about being strong in business. And the other point, to your point, Giles, making sure you reach out for help no matter what stage it is that you're at. And if you don't like to frame it in the word of help, use it as support or learning or mentoring or something else like that, because it's important. I've been in business for 20 years and I still get support whenever I possibly can. So again, thank you, Giles and Di, for today. I really appreciate it. Thanks to those of you who have come on live. And if you're listening into the call, there are other interviews in the More About series coming out. Just follow it via our website. Again, that's rdamnc.org.au. So we're going to sign out now, and I hope to see you on another webinar very soon.